this is Damien with DT Motorsports. I wanted to bring you guys way back to the beginning. So back around 2014, so 10 years ago, I wanted to build a new three-wheeler because I had all the old ones, all the ATCs, the Yamahas. I didn't really have anything to do with the Kawasaki three-wheelers till later in life, but basically, I wanted a new three-wheeler after riding my Tri-Z at the dunes, the 250R down in SoCal, 350X all over Alaska, CR480 conversion. Did a lot of vintage stuff, but basically this came to a head. I found some information on the internet about people that have built things like this, and there wasn't a lot of guidance. Like, guys would tell you to buy the wrong parts on purpose because they thought it was funny. So basically, all of this was my passion, and I wanted to bring new three-wheelers into the world. So what happened was I built one, other people wanted them, so then we cut out our first set of CNC triple clamps, got a 450, so on and so forth. Anyways, before all that, before money, time, everything, I built this. So what's unique about this is it has no conversion parts whatsoever. You can build this solely off parts that you can find on a shelf. So this is 2018 dirt wheels, so there I've been riding it for years right here. So this kind of just shows how long this thing's held up. Now all I've done in the last 10 years besides beat on it, like relentlessly, sold it twice, now it's sitting here again. The only thing that's ever been done is a piston and ring. So what can I tell you about reliability? It has been absolutely reliable. So basically what you have here is a machine that if that 250R had 20s on it, it would be a lot closer, but your wheelbase is within a couple inches of a 250R, same with your seat height. Same with the rest of the placement. However, stock for stock, this has almost twice the amount of power. Like a 250R stock, I don't know, we got like 37 horsepower. This guy's about 50 horsepower. So very substantial when you're riding them. Now, basically the hard parts about building one of these is you need to figure out triple clamps. So this is a Honda VTX1800 street bike triple clamp. You gotta shave a little part off the back, do some small modifications. Other than that, it pretty much all goes together. So you'd probably want some sleeves inside here, like I've done on the Kawasaki and the Honda over there. But back when I built this, I just cranked them down. I had to add little spacers for the front fender, 250R front fender. Now this is the hardest part. So trimmed half of the brake caliper off, still works great. Don't mind these leaking forks. Like I said, this has had like zero maintenance. It still goes great. I'm gonna restore it later. But basically this is a 200X ATC hub, which is way easier to find than other hubs. So then what you gotta do is run the studs through backwards so the wheel is on the other side of the hub now. And then I cut down an old ATC rotor and then put a couple washers behind it, drilled out the pattern for the YZ rotor. Now basically you have a rotor adapter. So this is all done now, and it's all off the shelf parts. You got a Honda hub, Honda clamps on the Yamaha. So the back here, it's a YFZ subframe, and it's just some tabs right here welded to the frame. You get it all where you want it. You measure from your pivot point back up on both sides and make sure you have it square and everything. This grab bar is severely bent. But to clear, so basically this one has the dirt bike shock in it. So we cut the front of the subframe off right here to clear the reservoir. So you cut that off and then you weld the tabs out even further, and then you drill new holes and bolt it on. So now you got the dirt bike shock. So you gotta weld the tabs on for the subframe. You gotta cut and weld the exhaust. You gotta re-angle it. And then you gotta weld some kind of foot pegs on. This old steel frame Yamaha has the mounts attached to the frame, so we just cut them off and welded YFZ pegs straight to it. So the rear end, you gotta cut the YFZ swing arm just with a cutoff wheel and then a sander wheel. That's all you need. So you take these bearings out and the sleeves out, then you cut it right here where the cap would be on both sides. Then you have about 8 inches. You line it up with 8 inches evenly. You measure over 2 1/4 inches, 5 11/16, and you cut those. And then you put the dirt bike bearings in, bearing, and then a seal and a seal. Save that old seal for the inside and put it back in, because the dirt bike bearing kit doesn't come with 2 of the small ones, because we're not using the bigger ones or the thrust bearings. Now, underneath here, you take your shock linkage and you measure out how much you gotta trim, then you trim out inside here as well. That's how we're running the dirt bike rear shock. So once you trim all that, then it all bolts in. Now, this chain slider was built by Plan B Racing. This one has been on there a long time, it's hammered. So that one is technically a conversion piece, just like our chain slider. However, this information hasn't been out there hardly because, you know, we made chain sliders, sold them, all that stuff, but you can modify this TTR 230 chain slider, cut it out a little bit here, and then it will bolt right on, as well as this Tri-Z chain slider with a tiny bit of trimming, it'll bolt right on in there. So that is the last item that you would need, and then now you have absolutely no conversion parts. So now, with a little bit of fab work, you completely built yourself a new Trike Conversion. So you gotta trim this brake pedal a little bit when you weld this on. And then we also added a 98 YZ250 kickstart so that you can kickstart it easier with the shorter one. But other than that, you don't need anything else. You don't need a fancy kit, you don't need anything. You need to either to have a little bit of knowledge about fabrication or have a buddy with a welder. But the end result, you end up with a highly capable machine that is very similar to our high dollar setup. However, the high dollar setup is going to perform much greater than this. So as you can see right here, you know, you got quite a bit of rake, but it still handles great. You can shorten the forks, tuck it in, do a bunch of stuff. Basically, if you extend the swing arm a little bit and tuck the rake in, you'll be ideal. But I just wanted to share all that information with you guys. Another thing you want to do is run a 40-tooth rear sprocket and then a 13 or 40 front, depending on what tire sizes you want to run. Then we run a 20 in the rear. The VTX triple clamp setup, you got to run a narrow tire. So we got a 22/711 on here, which on all my setups, I like to run a 23/710. So I don't go below a 23 on these, but for this specific one, I do run the 22 on it. Anyways, that's all the free information I have for you. So if you want a Trike Conversion, this is what I would recommend. Also, Yamaha is the way to go. As you can see by this YZ450 frame next to this Tri-Z frame, which is also very similar to the 250R frame. So this frame is the best design used for a Trike Conversion, which is very similar to that steel frame, which is what you'll be working off of. Now, in order to do this style frame, you would have to build brackets. You would have to have bushings for your shock on these 3 points right here. And then basically the rest of the build's the same after you do those things. Anyways, this is Damien with DT Motorsports. We are shut down, Consumer Product Safety Commission, so we are no longer doing this. Don't ask me for parts, don't ask me for help. I will share all this information with you, but otherwise you're on your own. So best of luck, and we're moving on to other stuff. Thank you.